The Law School Admission Council has just adjusted the new GPA policy they announced earlier this week. If you submitted your transcripts before July 28th, you can now ask LSAC to recalculate your GPA under the new rules. You can reach out by phone, by chat, or by email, and that's on their site right now. But most applicants don't even know this option exists yet. But for a lot of you, making that request is the wrong move. And I'm going to give you the math breakdown that tells you which position you're in. Takes about 2 minutes. You just got to have your transcript in front of you. And there's a second page on LSAC's site that raises a real question about whether a recalculation even reaches the law schools that already have your file. I'm going to get to that. Quick catch up if you missed the news earlier this week. On Tuesday, LSAC stopped counting college courses you took while you were in high school towards your LSAC GPA. The rule is effective that day and only for transcripts submitted from that day forward. But the way they framed the policy created a mess. You could have two applicants with the same grades and different GPAs depending on when their registrar hit send. Now here's exactly what LSAC said. I'm going to read it word for word because the wording decides who's covered. Quote, to ensure an appropriate transition to this new approach, any prospective applicant for admission in 2027 or later who, prior to this change, submitted transcripts that included college courses taken during high school may request that their LSAC GPA be calculated in accordance with the new policy. Then you've got the three ways to ask. Phone by calling 1-800-336-3982, the chat function on their site, or emailing lsacinfo@lsac.org with GPA recalculation in the subject line. And this announcement, aside from the emails to pre-law advisors and licensees, was buried in a collapsed section on their transcript summarization page under a heading about dual enrollment and AP credits. Buried so deep you have to already be looking for it just to find it. And the email went to pre-law advisors on Tuesday talking about dual enrollment. It mentioned AP classes once and only as a comparison, saying dual enrollment would be reported the way AP credits already get reported. But the live page says something different. It says dual enrollment courses and AP or CLEP courses taken during high school will not be counted in the CAS GPA. And the old section, the one that used to explain that AP and CLEP courses are included when they show up with a grade on your transcript, is gone. That part is deleted. And so if you had an AP course that landed on your undergraduate transcript with an actual letter grade attached, and some do, that grade used to count, now it doesn't. And LSAC's own parenthetical downplays it. In their words, the vast majority of AP courses have never been counted, so this only affects a very small proportion of AP credits. That's fair, and it's probably true, but the rule changed, and if you're in that small proportion, it changed for you specifically. So who actually qualifies for the recalculation? It's prospective applicants for admission in 2027 or later who submitted transcripts before the change that included college courses taken during high school. Now here's the math. The request only goes in one direction. You can ask LSAC to calculate your GPA under the new policy. That is the only thing you can request, and there's nothing published that lets you undo it after. So it's like a one-way door with no posted sign on it, and the whole question is which side you want to be on. What you got to do, compare the grades you earned in high school to the grades you earned in college. If your high school college course grades were worse than your college grades, taking them out raises your number. If they were better, taking them out lowers your number. That's the entire decision. If taking them out raises your GPA, you should call and request the change. If it lowers your GPA, don't ask for a change. Now, let's put real numbers on both sides because that'll make it more clear. Let's say you earned 24 credits of dual enrollment at a 3.4 GPA because you were 16 and taking college classes at 16. That's 100 credit. Then you did 100 credits in college, earning a 3.85 at a real 4-year program. If you blend the grades the old way, LSAC reports you at a 3.76. If you strip out the high school credits, you're at a 3.85. That's 0.09 of a point for your GPA. Just for making one phone call, you should make the call. Get the high school credits taken out. But if you flip it, that's no longer the case. Let's say you were a kid who did exactly what your guidance counselor said. You did 30 credits of dual enrollment, straight A's at a 4.0 GPA, then 90 credits at a harder undergrad program for a 3.75. With the old calculation, you're at a 3.81. With the new calculation, you're at a 3.75. So you'd be calling LSAC to lower your own GPA by 600ths. Why on earth would you do that? Don't call them. And 381, by the way, I didn't choose that number randomly. That is NYU's 25th percentile undergraduate GPA for the class that started last fall. It's also the exact reported median at 7 different law schools. So making that call moves you from the bottom edge of NYU's published range to underneath it, and from the middle of the class at 7 different law schools to below the middle. You also want to check your dual enrollment transcript for A pluses, by the way. LSAC converts an A plus to a 4.33, not a 4.0. That's from their conversion table on their site right now. And they do that even if your college caps their own scale at a 4.0. So if your old transcript is full of A pluses, the grades you'd be deleting are worth more than perfect, and the hit's bigger than you might think. And you also want to size all this against your credit load, because most people are nowhere near 30 credits. 24 credits would be a full year of college taken in high school. If you run that same grade gap at 6 credits, which is just 2 classes junior year, the move is about 200ths. That's a rounding error. It's insignificant. If you took 2 classes at the community college and got B's, this is not an emergency for you. You should be studying for the LSAT rather than worrying about this. Now, everything I just described is for people who already submitted transcripts prior to the change. Now, if you haven't sent in anything yet, you're getting the new calculation automatically. You can't make any requests for a change. No point in calling them. You don't get a choice in this. So if you were a kid who crushed dual enrollment and your transcripts went in last month, you can call LSAC. You can make a decision. You get to look at both numbers and keep the better one. But if your transcripts have not yet gone in, you don't get a choice. You've got the new number. You can't ask for the old calculation because the recalculation request only runs toward the new policy. You could be the same applicant with the same grades, have gotten a 4.0 at 16. One applicant has an option, the other one doesn't. All depends whether you already sent in your transcript. That is the split cycle. And I don't think that's what LSAC intended. I think they just wrote a transition rule for the people who got caught by the switch and didn't think about people who had not yet encountered this situation. But if you're a high performer who hasn't filed yet, there's no number to call. No point in even worrying about any of this. Just focus on your LSAT. Now, there are a couple of things LSAC has not yet addressed anywhere I can find. If you are requesting a change to your GPA, which you can do if you fit the category I mentioned earlier, there is no mention of how long this will take for them to make the change. And so given that we still have a month before applications open, I would request the change now so they have time to process it. They're probably getting inundated with calls these days from what I could tell. A lot of confusion they've created this week. They're also not saying whether there's a deadline to ask for the change. No cutoff or expiration on this transition window. And there's also not a whole lot of clarity about what happens if law schools already have your transcript. And LSAC has a separate page about law school reports, and they list the events that trigger sending an updated report to schools you've already applied to. If you retake the LSAT, if LSAC receives an updated transcript, if there's an error in a transcript or there's a new letter of rec that comes in. A policy recalculation is not on the list, though, probably because this is a new situation. And they also say that LSAC will not send law school reports at your request. And of course, most people eligible for this are applying for 2027, so their reports aren't even out yet, and this never comes up. Maybe that's why they didn't write this down, but again, if you do want to request the change, I'd request it sooner rather than later. And LSAC could have approached this differently. I think they were a bit too quick to jump the gun on this. There were a handful of ways they could have fixed this. They could have just recalculated everybody automatically. They could have started fresh in a new cycle for everybody. They could have run both numbers for everybody and chosen the better one. All this news, all this inside baseball only reaches people who follow LSAC announcements, nerds like me, somebody with a pre-law advisor who actually reads their emails, someone who paid a consultant, someone who watches live streams about LSAT and law school admissions like you fine folks. The reason for the change that LSAC is mentioning is that access to college courses varies by high school and that students may not know or may be incorrectly advised about how the grades would count. And I think that's true, but the solution for an information problem is to spread the information widely and to avoid penalizing those who are out of the loop, not to quietly make a change on a random July Tuesday and make it apply to folks regardless with a random cutoff without prior warning. The people most likely to be hurt by not knowing are the same people who are not going to find a collapsed section on a random page of the LSAC website. And so, again, if you're in this situation, if you have the option to change how your GPA is calculated, call LSAC sooner rather than later. Give them time to make the change and update your transcript well before applications open. And if you're not in the group affected by this, or you don't have an option to change anything at all, then don't worry about it. Focus on what you can control, which is your LSAT score. I mean, your LSAT score weighs more heavily than your entire undergraduate GPA combined, certainly a lot more than just a couple of classes that you took in high school, for example. If you want my help getting a higher LSAT score, getting into better law schools, getting more scholarship money, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference PDF on everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. You can grab that free cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. Links below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio as well. Happy to help you out. A law school hands you a scholarship. It's a big number in the award letter. You sign, you show up, you work like crazy your first year. Then the grades post and your GPA comes back a hair under the line they set, and half that money is gone. Not because you failed, but because the line was drawn above where most of the class was ever going to land. And those are the renewal terms in a lot of conditional scholarships, working exactly the way they were built to work. Now, I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005. Every spring, I get the same messages from people who were fine in the fall, thrilled with their offer, and then 1L grades hit and the money moved. And almost none of them saw it coming because the trap isn't in the big number on the front of the letter, it's in one sentence about renewal, and the way that sentence collides with how law school grades actually work. So here's how conditional scholarships work. The school offers you money, say a chunk off tuition every year for 3 years. But there's a condition attached to years 2 and 3. You've got to keep a certain GPA or keep yourself in a certain part of the class to renew it. If you miss that threshold, you lose some or all of the award. And it sounds fair on its face. Keep your grades up, keep your money. I mean, that's how scholarships work in college in many cases. But there's something different about law school. First year law school grades run on a forced curve. The school decides in advance what the grade distribution has to look like. A set percentage of the class gets the high marks, a set percentage lands in the middle, and a set percentage gets low ones. Doesn't matter how hard everybody works or how strong the class is. The curve is a shape the school imposes, so somebody has to be at the bottom of it by design. Now watch what happens when you put those two things next to each other. The renewal line on your scholarship is a GPA. The curve guarantees in advance that a predictable share of the class finishes below any given GPA. And so if the school sets the renewal line at or above the class median, then a big piece of the class is mathematically guaranteed to fall under it. So when you read that you've got to maintain a 3.0 GPA to renew, the real question isn't whether you're smart enough, it's where the school set the curve and what fraction of the class the curve drops below that number every single year. If the median is sitting right around that line, the school knows going in that a chunk of the students they gave money to are going to lose it. They're not hoping everybody keeps the award, they budgeted for a share of you to lose it. And this is measurable because the ABA makes schools disclose it. Take the year the data came in clean, over 9,000 students started law school on conditional scholarships. About 2,500 of them, about 27%, had that money reduced or taken away. So more than 1 in 4 students who signed up on a conditional award watched it shrink or disappear. And that's not a fluke. That's the design doing what it was built to do. Now, here's the part that should make you uneasy. Even in a good year, this keeps happening. As recently as 2024, about 5% of first-year students lost some or all of their scholarship value. And the rate has come down over the years, and that's real progress, but it never hits zero. It can't, because a forced curve guarantees a bottom of the class. So if the renewal line sits at or above the median, the curve drops a predictable slice of students under it every single year. In other words, the curve is manufacturing losers on schedule. The only open question is whether one of them is you. So imagine you picked a school partly because of the money. Maybe you turned down another offer for it. You built your budget, your loans, your whole 3-year plan around a number the school knew a share of students would never keep. Then year 2, the tuition bill jumps back up, and now you're borrowing the difference at a moment when you can't exactly transfer out mid-degree without the cost. The school already has you. So the problem here is not the professors, it's the renewal terms attached to a curve that manufactures losers based on schedule. So the school gets to advertise a scholarship and knows it's not going to fully pay out. Now, I'm not here to scare you off law school. I don't think law school is a scam. I never have. At the right school and the right price, it can genuinely be a good bet. The point is to not walk into the trap version of law school with your eyes closed. And better than that, to get the offer that doesn't have a trap in it at all. Because there's a second kind of scholarship, the unconditional one, where the money is yours for all 3 years with no GPA requirement, no curve you've got to survive. Whatever happens 1L year, your award renews. And the thing that gets you the unconditional offer, or gets the conditional line dropped low enough that the curve can't touch it, is your LSAT score. Because schools use scholarship money to buy LSAT scores that protect their own reported medians. The higher your score sits above a school's median, the more they want you in their class, and the more they're going to pay with fewer strings to get you there. A score that is at or above the school's 75th percentile is a different conversation than a score at the median. One gets you a conditional scholarship you've got to sweat every semester. The other gets you money that they're not trying to claw back. You could be the same person, same GPA on your application, a few more points on the LSAT, and the offer changes from conditional to guaranteed. So here's what you actually do with this. Before you commit a dollar, before you sign anything, you want to pull 2 things. First, you want to ask the school flat out, is the scholarship conditional or unconditional? And if it's conditional, what percentage of students on this award keep the full amount all the way to graduation? They have to disclose this. Most applicants never ask. The second thing you want to ask is, what is the renewal GPA relative to the class median, and how is the 1L curve set? If the renewal line sits at or above the median, you know the curve is going to take the award from a predictable share of the class, and you've got to decide if you're betting that you're not in that share. And if the answer you get is not a good one, don't lower your standards, don't accept the trap offer, raise your LSAT score, come back to the table, or take a better offer from a different school where you got unconditional money. Because the award letter is just the school's opening offer. You can negotiate. And the one lever that changes what offers you get and your negotiating leverage is your LSAT score. The schools are hoping that you'll read the big number and skip the fine print. Now you won't. And if you want my help getting a better LSAT score, getting better offers, that's what I'm here to help you out with. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep, free PDF download that you can grab at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. 2 years ago, a 165 put you in the conversation at a lot of strong law schools. But this cycle, that same 165 sits below the median of every school in the T14 because the bar has moved up. And a lot of folks are running on advice about what a good score gets you that's a couple of years stale. Now, I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005. A lot of people treat their LSAT score like a fixed thing, worth what it's worth, full stop, but it's not. A score is only worth what it buys relative to the field it throws you into. Now, quick disclosure, of course, I sell LSAT prep, so take what I say with a grain of salt, check the numbers yourself. But the medians, of course, tell their own story. Now, this is one of the biggest application cycles in 20 years. Applications are up approximately 25% over the past 2 years. Now, total volume is pushing back towards levels we haven't seen since the early 2000s, near 100,000 applicants. Now, when more people apply, the pool at every school gets deeper, the medians go up, and a given score buys less. Now, every single median LSAT in the T14 now sits between 170 and 174. Yale, Harvard, Chicago all have LSAT medians of 174. Columbia, Stanford, Penn, Northwestern, Cornell, all at 173. I'm not saying you should panic. I'm just telling you not to aim lower. When the field tightens, your move is to raise your number, not to lower your standards. A score sitting above a school's median is worth real money because schools buy up scores above their medians with scholarship dollars because that median feeds their ranking. US News still counts that. And so your score relative to the median is the entire game. Below the median, you're paying full sticker. Above it, they're paying you to enroll. So if you can get an LSAT score above the medians, you incentivize the school to give you scholarship money because you're going to help them raise their standing in the US News rankings. So imagine 2 applicants, both with a 165. One applied 2 cycles back, one at 165 cleared the median at a solid school. That gets you an award, knocks years off your loans. You walk in paying a fraction of sticker. But if you apply with a 165 this cycle, where the median is above that number, now you're below the line, getting no money, borrowing close to full tuition. You could be the same score, the same person, but the field moved under you, and you pay for it. It's only because the bar moved. So that you're not guessing where you stand, for every school on your list, pull their ABA 509 report. It's a free public 2-page PDF. Just Google the school's name plus 509, find their median LSAT and their 25th and 75th percentiles. Then put your LSAT score against that spread using this cycle's numbers, not what your friend got 3 years ago. If you're below the school's 25th percentile, that school's a reach, and the scholarship math is not in your favor. If you're right in the median, it's more of a coin flip. But if you are above the 75th percentile, they're likely to pay you to enroll, and you can negotiate from that strong position. You also want to check where the median's been heading over the last few cycles. In other words, pull the past few years of ABA 509 reports to get a sense of the trend line. If you run that check and your score sitting below where you want it to be, the answer is to retake the LSAT. Your GPA is locked if you've already finished undergrad. You can't control the size of the applicant pool. You can't control the medians, but you can control your score. And that is the difference between paying full sticker and getting real scholarship offers. And if you want my help getting your LSAT score up, getting more scholarship money, getting into better schools, that's what I'm here to do. I can help you out with a free LSAT tutoring lesson, unpluggedprep.com/start. I can offer you a free LSAT cheat sheet PDF download linked below this video. You can grab that at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. Every law school in America publishes a 2-page report that tells you whether they are in trouble. It's free, it's public. Almost nobody watching this right now has ever opened one. And the schools are fine with that because there are 3 lines in that report read together that tell you if a school is quietly sliding before the closure notice, before the merger, before your degree loses its impact. I'm going to show you exactly which 3 lines, how to read them as a set, so you can pull any school's report and know in 5 minutes whether they're healthy or heading for a ball. Now, I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and the question I get besides how do I get a 175 is, will this school be worth it? And so I read the filings. The report is called the 509. Every ABA accredited law school has to publish one every single year. It's a standardized 2-page PDF, and buried in it are the numbers that admissions will never volunteer on a tour. Now, here's the mistake most people make when they do finally look. They read one number in isolation. They see a school's bar passage rate had one soft year and they panic, or they see a healthy median and relax. But one number in 1 year tells you almost nothing because a single bad cycle could be an outlier. And a single good number could be hiding a decline. the signal is not in any one line. It's three lines moving together over time. And when all three of them are going down over a few years, that's a school that's in trouble. I'm going to give you the three. The first one is the bar passage rate. You want to find the school's first-time bar passage rate and their ultimate two-year bar passage rate. Again, don't just read this year's number, read the last 3 or 4 years. Is it holding steady, or is it drifting down cycle after cycle? A school at 80%, that's been at 80% for years, is stable. But a school that's at 80 now, that was at 88 3 years ago, is falling, and the direction is important because there's an ABA rule, Standard 316, that says at least 75% of a school's graduates who take the bar have to pass within 2 years, or the school risks its accreditation. That is the tightest version of that rule the ABA has ever had. And since 2020, 19 different law schools have posted two-year bar passage rates below that 75% threshold. And the ABA has handed out public noncompliance notices and put at least one school on probation over it. And so a school whose bar numbers are sliding toward that 75 line is not a theoretical worry. It's a school under real pressure, and pressure changes how it behaves. So ask yourself, why would a school's bar passage rate slide down in the first place? And that comes down to line number 2 I want you to look at, the 25th percentile LSAT. The median tells you about the middle of the class. The 25th tells you who the school is willing to let in at the bottom. And that bottom number predicts bar trouble because the students at the bottom of the LSAT range are the ones most likely to fail the bar. So track the 25th percentile over the same few years. If it's dropping, the school is reaching lower to fill its seats. And the school reaching lower on the LSAT today is the school whose bar passage is likely to slide 3 or 4 years from now when those students graduate and sit for the bar. So it's a predictor of the future. Now, the 19 schools that landed below the 75% bar passage rate didn't get there overnight. You could see it years earlier. You could predict it in the 25th percentile that kept drifting down. Now, line 3 I want you to look at is the class size. You want to find the number of students the school enrolled in their first year class, and again, track it over a few years. If a school is shrinking its class while holding its number steady, that could actually be a healthy move. In other words, they're cutting seats to protect their quality. But if the school is growing their class while the 25th percentile LSAT drops, that is a danger signal. It means the school is filling their seats by reaching lower, and that's going to feed a bar passage slide down the road. If the class size is falling and their bar numbers are sliding and their 25th percentile LSAT is dropping all three at once, the school is losing the students who can pay and reaching for students who are harder to get licensed while their outcomes drop. So that pattern precedes a pretty bad ending. You see this kind of profile most clearly at the very bottom of the market, schools with median LSATs down in the 140s, a totally different planet from the 170 plus medians at the top. And when the intake numbers sink that far and keep sinking further, the bar results follow. Now, a school caught in this kind of slide is themselves trapped because they are tuition dependent. They need tuition to keep their lights on, so they reach lower to fill seats, which drops the 25th percentile, which drops bar passage 3 years out, which drops their reputation. So they have a harder time attracting strong students, so they've got to reach lower again. It is a vicious spiral, and the school is stuck in it. And this is just a structural consequence of the situation they find themselves in. And there's not a whole lot they can do about it, but there's just a lot that you could do, of course, that you can be aware. So before you pay a deposit anywhere, pull the school's 509 report. Just Google the school name plus 509. Open up that 2-page PDF you're going to find, and pull the last 3 or 4 years of this, not just this year's. Look at the bar passage rate. Look at the 25th percentile LSAT. Look at the class size. All of this together. All three of them sliding together is a school that you do not want to bet 3 years and 6 figures on. Now, the same read that spots a school in trouble also shows you your own power in this equation. The 25th percentile LSAT is the floor a school will accept. The 75th percentile is the ceiling. If your school sits below that 25th percentile line, you're walking into the exact group the bar is hardest on at a school that may be sliding. But if you can move your score up above the median, up toward that 75th percentile, then everything changes. You stop being the student a shaky school is reaching for, and you become the student a healthy school pays to enroll. You get access to the schools where none of these three things are sliding at all because your GPA is locked and the school spiral isn't yours to fix, but your score is the one number in this whole report that is still in your hands. If you want my help getting your LSAT score up, getting into better law schools, getting more scholarship money, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering a free LSAT tutoring lesson for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a free PDF download that you can grab at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care. Thanks for joining.